Hello, hello, welcome. Well, I am absolutely thrilled to be sitting here with my dear, dear friend and longtime mentor and guide, Barbara Rector. So, hi, Barbara. Thank you so much for being here. So, we're going to start out our conversation by just taking a big deep breath and letting your mind drift back to when you very first came to think that there was something more to this horse-human relationship. When you get back to that point, see if you can come up with a word or a brief sentence that describes you, that moment, the moment of inception of this idea. So whenever you're ready, just let us know what comes up for you.
Okay. And you already know the story of how in my family, I came to my mom's womb and exited knickering. So it's always been that. My word for when the dots began to connect is naive. I did not realize other people did not read the field and did not naturally generalize what I could see. And I had someone tell me the other day, they believe it's because of the so-called dyslexia that I had to see both out and in and could so rapidly make the match. Hence, the other word about the naivety is recognizing the significance of any animal, and now, of course, plants, everything wants the connectivity of inner and outer. And our word we're using now in the research decoding is coupling, or what I've always known as matching. It's got to match or it's not. And I think back to those early days at Chapel Rock and you coming into my life, and you did the same thing. It was really the first time I had encountered another walking, talking human being who, and I have laid it always, you can verify if this was true or not, that your early experiences in Hollywood as a catch rider, you had to literally read quickly and match up to get the comfort level with the horse. Because if horse feels you're matching, it doesn't matter what you're trying to do, it will be successful. You're just, but I thought everybody did that. And then I feel like the meeting with you was just sheer grace.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you so much. And vice versa. it was magic. And you know what's so interesting, Barbara, is that I've only just recently really realized the power of dyslexia, and that is also the diagnosis that I've carried for my life, and the similarities I think you and I see in each other. And it's weird, you know, it's like we don't need to put it in a container like a diagnosis, but there is something also interesting. Our brains are just different, you know, and I think that's what we start to realize as we learn more and more, that not every brain is the same, and it allows us, each brain allows us to do something different, you know, and it doesn't make it better,
Absolutely.
you know, but it just means it's different. So I think when we met, it was like this kindred spirit sense, you know, of like, I see you, you know, I see me in you, or whatever that saying is, you know. So really it was such a blessing and life-changing. So for those of you who don't know Barbara as well as I do, I wanted to
Remind me how old you were, though.
Oh gosh, Barbara, I was 19. Yeah. And for the audience, it might be a funny little story because I think it actually introduces Barbara in a beautiful way, which was that at 19, I'd been a horse trainer and, like Barbara said, a catch rider and all these other things. And I finally decided I had to go to college, and I ended up at Prescott College. And I saw my first year there was this course advertised, like, I don't remember what it was called, equine therapy or something. And I had never heard of anything related to equine therapy or horses doing this stuff for people in any other way than I was used to. Uh, and showing my naivete, I trot myself up there to the barn at Chapel Rock and say, "Hey, Barbara, you don't know me at all, but I think I should be your TA for this course. I know nothing about this topic, but I'm certain that I'm supposed to be your TA." And in Barbara's absolutely beautiful, humble way, she said, "Oh, well, absolutely then. Clearly you should be." And we were off.
Mhm.
So yes, it
Mhm.
was a delightful meeting. I don't know how many, what has it been, 25 or more years ago. So a long time together with lots of adventures.
Mhm. Mhm.
So let me see what I've done, audience here is I've written out a little bit of a description of Barbara's bio, because I think it's really important everybody has an understanding of her impact on this industry. And so I'm going to go ahead and share that. And Barbara, just interject if I mess up anything or forget something important. So anyways, this is Barbara, and Barbara has been, like I said, my mentor, my teacher, dear friend, dear friend of over 25 years. And Barbara is considered by many to be the Omi, or grandmother, of our industry. In the early 1990s, Barbara created one of the earliest equine facilitated psychotherapy programs at Sierra Tucson, which is a premier treatment center in Tucson, Arizona. And during her time at Sierra Tucson, Barbara hosted these workshops for people from all over the world who were interested in learning more about this innovative treatment method that she at the time coined, I think, equine facilitated experiential learning. That's
Mhm.
right. Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. And so Barbara at that time was also, and many of you have watched the other video I posted, which was through the perceptual lens of Barbara Rector, which tells a lot more about Barbara's initial story of healing from a very, very traumatic accident that did cost her her life, but also brought her into the realm of the horse and healing sort of framework. And so as a part of that, she was very active in what was then called NARA, which was the North American Riding for the Handicapped Association, now called PATH International. And Barbara, helped to spearhead the creation of the Equine Facilitated Mental Health Association, which was the first time that people put words to this industry really in a public sort of way. Um,
Mhm.
and that uh, and that was developed as a subgroup of NARA. And Barbara became the first co-president with Boo and
McDaniel.
McDaniel, yep, and
Al Martin.
now Martin, exactly. And so they went on to run EFMA for a number of years, and then continued on to kind of guide the development of the relationship between NARA and EFMA, and just the formation of EFMA as an association. And then somewhere along the line, Barbara turned her attention to considering the notion of professional competencies, and really, I think, seeing this big hole in our industry where people were really interested in doing the work and really wanting to do the work, but weren't maybe as skilled as they needed to be, frankly, to do it ethically and safely and respectfully.
Mhm.
And so Barbara then led the formation of what is now called the Certification Board for Equine Interaction Professionals. So that was an important moment, I think, and perhaps before its time, before it was really fully appreciated that there was a need for that, which obviously we see so much more now and understand so much more now. But more recently, Barbara has devoted herself to supporting research efforts in this work, and she's co-designed a major research project with her dear friend and our dear friend Ann Alden, who has since passed away, and Dr. Ann Baldwin of University of Arizona. And this research project resulted in the 2018 peer-reviewed published paper, Effects of a Form of Equine Facilitated Learning on Heart Rate Variability, Immune Function, and Self-Esteem in Older Adults. So that was a milestone and a big piece of monumental work.
It's ongoing. We're still at it. And you mentioned our colleague, Linda Kohana, and another colleague that we haven't talked about, Lisa Walters, who joined in this latest, because the culmination from what we call the Borderland study, the one you cited, is now we have another manuscript in the pipeline, and from the mindful grooming, and then we have, that would have been in Sebastopol, and then the 2-year project that's culminating, and we're actively writing right now the work excuse me, and also down at Linda's in Tubac, how the rock back and sigh contributes to all elements of this interaction with horses. And I would like to go back and piggyback on the name at Sierra Tucson when the medical director pops out and he's like, look, we need a name. The medical's concerned, insurance for sure wants it. And this is so early in the game, we could still have adolescents in treatment for 90 days, which is actually how long they really need to be in treatment. And so does anybody with the dual diagnosis. So these 28-day programs they're good, and they're not enough. They still aren't enough. So we have such a frontier of work remaining to do. But that name, like everything that comes through me, equine facilitated, meaning for me, horses drive the process. Experiential learning. That's learning by doing. Yay, Prescott College for teaching me that. And it's true. Professors can learn as well as the students, and do. And I feel like, and I remember sitting in the auditorium at your graduation, and kind of piggybacked with your mom and dad, and I recognized how these dots were falling together, and that, first of all, you were going to soar, and you have, and how critical it was that I find the language. And I think I talked to you about this afterwards. How do we get you on that trip cross country to touch base with everybody? Where do we find money? What do we, you know? And I just had this certainty it would fall into place. And it did, in ways we could not have fathomed at the time. But again, I believe it's that inherent ability you brought that evoked my knowingness that, boy, we got a match on this, and we have to have that internal flowy feeling, and it will work. And I truly know, Leaf, that's what's going to help men now. The immense gap, even in this industry, because more and more the lighted chasm is filling in with horse driving our awareness of the significance of presence.
Well, and I think that actually, that was not good. Sorry, my speaker did something weird. I think, Barbara, what's so interesting about that is it almost brings us to our first question. And I'll back up, like, I want to go forward to the first question, then back to the rest of our history of your your movement through this industry. But like what you're speaking of really makes me think that a lot of people just don't know your history pre Sierra Tucson, like the like you and I talked about before we hit the record button, this idea that when you came onto the scene, there wasn't something else. There wasn't another model for you to look to and draw from. There just was nothing out there in any sort of public way. There might have been other people doing it privately all over, but there was nothing publicly out there. And so, what is it? This idea of awareness and this idea of sensitivity to all of these different energetic factors. Like, how did you come to, what are the features of your past or the parts of your education or your study that came forward into your work with equines, especially in terms of equine facilitated experiential learning? So I think about things like your history with Ram Dass and that whole story, and time in Berkeley, and just sort of tell us a little bit about those parts and pieces that kind of make this part of who you are, and what you're bringing into the world and into this industry, frankly.
Wow. You just laid out what I'm trying to do right now in this final phase of my life journey of, what they speak of as the geriativity of the final trimester of birthing. I'm still birthing myself. And the recognition of it's always been there. I can't give you like a definitive thing. I do know the meeting somehow my and if you're supposed to be someplace, you'll show up and you'll be there, and all these synchronistic experiences started happening to me where, holy cow, like this is kind of funny. And she knows I tell this story, so I won't be telling tales out of too badly out of but Dr. Groff sent me because I was literally within 2 weeks of graduating the 2-year program as part of my studies to be a psychologist and a psychotherapist at the Attitudinal Healing Center in Tiburon with Dr. Jampolsky, his son Lee. And Dr. Groff was part of my curriculum, and I was going, this is Barbara's idea, to use this amazing, non-drug driven, evocative music of precision and sensory deprivation with the little eye shades over you, and never doing it alone. And I totally get why you never do it alone. And you always have a sitter with you who is babysitting your earth suit, your bio earth suit, while you're out in the ethers journeying. And I have some remarkable stories about that I won't go into. But Dr. Groff they said, let me get this straight. Christine just told me that you're going to come along with us. You're 2 weeks from graduating, but you're willing to go to Tucson and help train those doctors and nurses and all of the psych tech aides and everything that Bill O'Donnell in his forethought had said they all need to be trained. They're going to think they're having psychotic breaks. They're not. They better be paying attention. I was like, yes. So, and that's where the notions of this watch the horse, what I had always done, observe the horse, ask the horse, I would always get answers. And, but that's a little hard to translate to the medical field, who's like, that's not doing it for us. We need a little more concretized. How did you get from here over to there? And I hear that's what you're asking me on. So Dr. Groff says to me, Barbara, could you go early to Tucson? And I have this amazing musician, Steve Roche, in Tucson, who apparently he does not, he's in the same zip code as you of your home that you have on your application. Please go see him for me. I'll call and let him know you're coming. And here's my list of the music I need, because I'm going to use it at Sierra Tucson in the trainings. And I need a little month or two to get ready. Okay. So armed with my address and whatever, and that Stan has indeed called Steve. And good gravy, we could have walked to each other's houses. We were that close. He was right on my way, my little backyard way of going to Elmara, the farm, my second home. And so on the way to work, I stop at Steve, and it was immediately apparent I would have to call work and say, I'm probably not coming today because this amazing man and I just went, "Boo." And the music, he even showed me his studio. We probably visited for 2.5 hours, and then the horses in the backyard and kind of in another paddock over. So there was, I loved the place. We're out on the porch, and Linda comes in. Who the hell are you? What are you doing here? Honey, this is Barbara. She's the lady you've been looking for. Because we had tackled that early, and he's like, can you stay for tea? Can you do this? And of course, didn't take anything, because he and I were like you and I when we met. We knew each other. When you meet someone you know, it's like, pay attention. So that's what, and so he gets Linda calmed down, and she joins us, and then it reaches her brain case that she has been looking for me for maybe a year and a half, trying to find Barbara, who helped develop Trot and would know this book she had rumbling around in her head, that she felt she needed to go out on a limb, and indeed it was a limb, and very brave, to write the Tao of Equus. And yeah, so that's begun a very long friendship where we didn't quite have that instantaneous, the way you and I did, and the way Steve and I have, but quite warm and respectful and loving. She's become a beloved. And yeah, it was just so. And that experience, and the whole going to Baxter Springs and learning the science model from these physicians, overlaid. And it's really weird. You were talking about Chris Irwin. He and I have crossed trails back and forth a number of times, and I have always revered his ability. Again, I don't know how he describes it, but listen to the horse. Is the horse buying into this? So
So there's a way, let me see if I am capturing this. There's a way in which this notion of holotropic breath work with Steve and Christina Groff then dovetail, and then music, right? So you've got breath work, you've got the power of sound of
it's
music,
evocative music.
evocative.
And the deal with Steve's, especially in the early works, and now again in these amazing things he's doing, is very nature sounds. The power of nature is allowed to speak through both Steve and Linda, the way they're now composing and offering it, and extraordinary. So, and now let's go back to experiential education, learning. That's all of it, learning through doing, but paying attention with the intention to what is really going on here. And that at some point, and this is happening to all of us now, Leaf, on the globe, we're making this shift into an era of need to match inside with outside, and tell the truth to the great truth. However you want to call, for me, it's source, God, Goddess, all there is. I have Holy Spirit who helps decode. And that is the mandate right now, for everybody to discover their own way because we all have this visceral, internal feeling, sense feeling. And since you've known me, I've used that word, sense feel. It's a sense feeling of this is my truth. And it can be totally different than my family's, and frequently is. Frequently is very different than any employers I've had. And remember the struggles the bishop had with crackers. I mean, okay, how do I tell my congregation what's, and I was like, I would just believe what you're feeling.
Well, and the other
And
important thing I think you're saying, Barbara, is this idea about as well about connection to nature. So it's like connection to yourself and really understanding your authentic and felt experiences of the world, and then connection to the natural environment and being able to listen to something other than, something outside of ourselves, and to match with that or to connect to that in a way that maybe will bring about a different kind of healing, or empathetic response from us.
it's beyond any time. Much as I would love to tell you I have nothing in common with our last president, not true. And until I could go, wait a minute, mister, you have so benefited the mental health field. You have so benefited our general global energetic field reading of, and what an opportunity to discover truth for you. We're all going to be different. And then how do we mend that gap?
The hurt.
And so much as I would like to tell you, not a thing in common. No, he is me. I am you. We are beloveds or source. And it would do well for us to recognize that.
Yeah, our similarity, and so now back to kind of Ram Dass. I was just listening to, he has a beautiful, um, he has beautiful, beautiful meditations, and luckily they were recorded, so that we can still enjoy them. But one of them is about, seeing the light, right? So seeing the light in ourselves, and thus being able to see the light in others, no matter how different we are, or how and it makes me wonder too, this idea about sort of these pieces that you've brought together. So you've been able to take from your all of your vast life experiences and see those points of interconnection. And what I'm kind of wondering is, out of that, sitting where you are now, right, watching this industry as it's unfolded over all these years, what are some of kind of the biggest ahas that you've had in watching this, like watching the development of our industry, and or what would be a message that you'd send out to those coming into it, new to it, you know, anything that you'd want them to really be aware of or noticing as they're coming in?
I really sense feel it's incredibly important for every individual to come into a knowingness of self. And then when recognizing in music, they speak of the dissonant note that captures your attention, just like in psychopathology, where the troubled issue in the family captures all the attention. And then it's everyone else who gets sick and dies. It's so, and Ram Dass was good at speaking to, no, let's go to the light in all. And I truly know as he was readying, and he knew he was readying to make his transition, he's not gone anywhere. He can help us. And he knew that. He was very similar, like Wayne Dyer, like me. I'm really feeling quite, and I know it's baffling, but I really won't be going anywhere. So much as the consciousness and the bio earth suit, yeah, you're free of it. Um, I would pray. I do pray actually for this industry and for all on the globe, really, to recognize their inherent knowingness of self. That's a huge gap. And I feel like the gap we experience, whether it's in our politics, our socioeconomic, who gets a vaccine and who doesn't, but thank God, as of yesterday, we're all can get what we're supposed to get. As you come into this gap, we're filling it in with the light that these great teachers spoke of. And it doesn't matter the color, it's light. It's every color in the spectrum and some we've never seen. And they're filling it in, building the bridge. I loved that picture of, and several strong teachers have talked about this, but for me, you know how you'll hold something in the animated version of the movie Spirit, okay? And he's coming up to the cliff and he absolutely knows he can make the leap. And it's that knowingness and that faith and trust and hope and compassion that we all begin to practice in our lives, in our barns, with our families, that builds the lighted bridge. The light is solid. It's like, no, where's the problem?
Well, I think what you're speaking to so beautifully, Barbara, is this idea of the importance of using light and love and compassion to build those bridges, and that we need that more now than ever. And whether that's between all walks of life, human and non-human, animal and nature, and all of us finding a way to be a little kinder and easier on each
Mhm.
other and on the planet. And you know, I just, this is such a, I think, poignant and critical moment for this interview, because, one of the things that's happening it seems like one of the things that's happening in your life is this incredible opportunity of, like, you have been in the thick of things in this industry for a very long time, right in the middle of it, or at the head of it, and now you have this perspective, this way in which you are kind of stepping back or stepping onto the sideline or whatever place that you imagine yourself being. And I wonder, what are some of those sort of lessons, like, from that perspective? How are you viewing the industry now, from this sort of stepped back perspective instead of the engaged and directly in it perspective? I don't know if that's shifted anything for you.
No, that's a great, and you did a wonderful and very accurate, I believe, from my perspective, that I'm like a little telescope that's gone backwards a little to go forwards. I liked your phrase, go backwards to go forward. And because and I've had this wonderful opportunity to learn I learned how to click the Zoom button. That's really what I've learned. But what and 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 see not just the industry, but my whole family, my surroundings, the colleagues, um, is bringing up an amazing hope, really strong hope, faith, trust, that we are compelled and called to, again, and I guess what I would say, what I'm seeing and learning, is that if you can find the courage to follow your heartline, your 1-800 heartline, and you identify it, and then fearlessly go forward, honoring and practicing that coupling matching for whatever, it helps to mend the fabric of our world. And that's what we're all looking for. And we do fall into a period. I feel like what now I maybe would have done earlier had I known about it is practice more reverently the sacred aspects. That horse for me, but everyone is different. For some people, it's a daffodil. For some people, it's gardening. Whatever it is, go for the reverence of the vortices circling around for spring, summer, fall, winter. I mean, the divine truly designed our realm quite incredibly. And I would mandate paying close attention to what captures you, because you will again get that internal feel and follow. For me, I call it my knowingness, where source and Holy Spirit and the Barbara high self and low self and ego are all lined up. When that alignment chinks in, it's enervating. It's just like our studies are showing with the horses. And here's for me the incredible thing. I wish I had been so brave as to assert, excuse me, look at the horse. It is giving us the answer. And go for that without being afraid they might give me a lobotomy and think I was, which many people did. I mean, but you know what I'm grateful for, Leaf? I believe I will leave the planet not as the woo-woo queen, but as maybe we should have been listening. I'm just saying.
Well, and you know what I love about that is think about your first word. So this idea of sort of naivete and sort of expecting that everyone would just understand the same thing you did and see the same thing and feel the same thing. And then sort of all these years of realizing and recognizing that people don't see the same thing and they don't necessarily understand exactly what you're saying or talking about. And then coming into this phase of conducting research, scientific research that's starting to find
Ooh,
words. Yes, you know, like these words that can be understood by a different brain type. You know what I mean? Because that's important too. And yet the thing that you've known to be true this whole time is just taking a different form. You know, and so I
mhm.
think to wrap up for today, what I really want to know then is what is your word now? If it started out naive, what is it today?
Trusting hope.
That's beautiful, Barbara. And wow, and what an idea of like that magnifying glass and that, oh man, it's so interesting as you dug in and you became more specific to the work you were doing, and then you got to this point that you've gotten to this point of like finding that clarity. And then out the other end comes this idea of trust and hope. And then there's the ability to sort of pull back and it just happens, you know? It's beautiful.
Olive, thank you for inviting me to do this.
Thank you
I
so much.
feel I love you, precious.
Thank you. And I'm going to stop the recording and give you a big hug.
Okay.
Energetically. Okay.